we have the spleen. And so the spleen is about health, well-being, and spontaneity. And 45.2% have this undefined. And this shows up as amplifying others' health and wellness. And the not self is hanging on to what is not good for you. So the question you could ask is, am I hanging on to stuff that's not good for me? Or how am I hanging on to stuff that's not good for me? And the secret is that spontaneity is not for you, and recognize your own needs that you need to attend to. And the secret is that you don't have to cling in fear for survival. So this whole thing, like spontaneity is not for you. So spontaneity is for the people who have the defined spleen, right? Because that defined spleen is running its little scans and making sure like, hey, you're safe. This is safe. This is not safe, right? It's going to be giving that person those intuitive hits about their health. But if you have your spleen undefined, we're not getting those regularly. We're not getting those regular intuitive hits in the same way. So spontaneous stuff is not for us. We're not here to be, doing crazy, dangerous stuff, because our body is not going to be giving us that same, note on if this is healthy or not. And on the other side is recognizing your own needs to attend to. So if you have an undefined spleen and you're around a defined spleen, especially if they're like a good quality spleen that's taking care of themselves and like they are in a healthy place, like they can feel like really good, and you will just feel way better. Being around a defined spleen when it's undefined can be like, oh my God, it feels so safe. It feels so nice. It's almost like an unearned trust. I have found you're like, oh, I feel so good with this person. I just trust you and I feel so good, which can be potentially dangerous. Like be careful on that, because you can be with somebody who has a defined spleen and they feel good and trustworthy, but in reality they are not, right? Don't let that make your decision for you, because you don't have like a clear sense of it, because you're just feeling into how good they feel. And making sure that you're taking care of your needs like extra, to be extra good on the self-care, making sure you're eating good and sleeping well and you're drinking water and you're doing all these things. Because if you're hanging out with a defined spleen, you're going to feel great. You're going to feel fine. And it's almost like you're getting an incorrect reading on your health, because you're not feeling into your health. You're feeling into this other person's health. So this happened with a friend of mine a while ago, where he was hanging out with somebody and they were hanging out overnight, doing what they're doing. And the next day I came by and I got there and I've never seen him look so unwell. I was like, what is wrong with you? Like, why do you look like you're about to like pass out? And like, do I need to take you to the hospital? And it's because he'd been hanging out with this other person for, a day and a half or whatever, and not taking care of his own needs, because he felt fine in this other person's defined spleen. And as soon as that defined spleen was out of the picture, he looked like he was on death's door. He looked pale and miserable. And then I needed to tend to him and get him, some food and some water and let him sleep and do all these things to like bring him back. And so in that, it's like we both learned, like, if you have an undefined spleen, like you have to take extra good care of yourself, because it's really easy to just chase the good feelings of somebody else with a defined spleen. And as soon as they're not in the picture, like you're going to be in like a low and shabby state. Like it's not gonna be fun for you, because it's like eventually it's like the chickens are going to come home to roost kind of thing. Like you haven't been taking care of your health and your wellness, and now it's going to bite you in the butt. So yeah, undefined spleen, making sure that you're taking extra good care of yourself. And the undefined spleen can feel like it doesn't have what it needs to survive. It's not going to make it through. The world is big and scary and dangerous, and I don't have what it takes. And so in that, it can really like cling. It can cling to people, places, objects that are not necessarily good for it, right? Like this is, the person that's in the bad relationship and they try to break up like 10 times and they just cannot get away from the person. And I've definitely been in that situation. And even if you're like ready and you're screaming at the person, you're breaking up and it's like happening, as soon as you're back into the same aura with that person, it's like, and you're stuck again. I was in a relationship for far too long, because every time I tried to get away, that would exactly happen, until it finally had to get so bad that it was just like destroy and run away. But yeah, being aware of like if you're clinging on to people or things, right? This can also be like hoarding and hanging on to objects that, hey, maybe I'll need this someday. Maybe I'll need this someday. Maybe maybe I have this. Maybe this will help me survive. And then you end up surrounded by stuff and you don't even know what it is or where it is. And you wouldn't even like know how to find it if you needed it. But it's being so afraid that you can't survive in the world that you're going to cling to anything that might help you out. And there's a place for like safety and be prepared for emergencies and whatnot. But if it's healthy for you, is this person actually good for your long term? Are these objects really necessary? Are these really benefiting your life? Or are they just cluttering it up and making your life more miserable? So, being aware of that. And with any undefined center, it's like, what is the quality of the definition you're hanging out with? If you're hanging out with somebody that's not taking good care of themselves, like your spleen is going to feel really bad too. We can tune into the health and wellness of other people. And it can be kind of weird because there's times where I've seen somebody, I'm like, oh, they feel like they're in a really bad place. They don't feel well, or like, oh, I think they're going to pass on soon, like an older, neighbor. This happened a while ago. And then a few weeks later, they passed on. And it's like, I almost felt bad or guilty because I had that thought, but it was like, I wasn't like wishing it upon him. It was just like, oh, I could tell that the quality of that person's health was, on that decline and they're towards the end. So we can be really aware of the health and wellness of other people, and which can be good and bad, right? Like if you get sucked up into other people, you can have a weird time. But, if somebody maybe is in the medical field or some kind of wellness industry, then that can actually help them because you can feel into like, hey, what is the quality of this other person's health? And you can use it in a healthier way. Just being aware of when you're clinging on to somebody or something that's not good for you is the main thing to be aware of with the undefined spleen.